Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us today. Why is the redistricting referendum unconstitutional?
For multiple different reasons. Well, number one, I ruled it insufficient due to it being unconstitutional. First of all, the Missouri Constitution does not authorize a referendum on congressional redistricting passed by the Missouri General Assembly. Federal law is also clear. The Missouri Constitution cannot be interpreted to strip the General Assembly of its authority over redistricting absent a clear statement. We have Article 3, Section 45 of the Missouri Constitution that states the General Assembly shall, by law, divide the state into congressional districts. And then lastly, Article 3, Section 45 makes no mention of redistricting by IP or referendum. So that's first. And then secondly, the deadlines for certification just don't make sense, Jason. I mean, today's the primary election day, and it's also the deadline for certification as sufficient or insufficient for the referendum. So the deadlines don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to have the deadline for the referendum also be the same day as the primary election day. And then lastly, the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 4 says the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. So, for those reasons, and as well as they're further outlined in General Hanaway's opinion that accompanied the insufficient ruling of insufficiency, I declare the referendum insufficient.
If you read the Missouri Constitution, there are several things that cannot be placed up for a referendum very specifically. One of them, I believe, is appropriations bills, and the other are bills with emergency clauses, which means they go into effect right away. It does not say anything about a redistricting referendum being excluded. Does that weaken your argument?
I don't think that weakens the argument. I think that our founders never thought that a congressional redistricting map would be up for a referendum. And, the Attorney General, Hanaway, has agreed with that. My internal counsel has agreed with that. Governor Kehoe has agreed with that. And so I would say that, hey, the Missouri First map is still the law of the land.
There are two specific pieces of precedent that people, not politician folks, point to. One is the fact that Missouri did have a referendum on redistricting in 1922. The other is a U.S. Supreme Court case that very explicitly says that you can have a referendum on a redistricting plan. Can you respond to both of those points?
I would say that the first in the 1922 case, I mean, that's been over 100 years ago. And there's been different interpretations of the Missouri Constitution as well as state law since 1922. And my understanding is no one challenged the referendum in 1922 as being unconstitutional. So I would say that on the prior 1920 or 1922 case. The other one I'm not as familiar with as far as the federal legislation. I know we did appear before a federal court this past December of 2025. And December 2025, basically, the federal court said that the state court would have to decide that. So I think that I am in compliance with Missouri state law as well as the Missouri Constitution.
You and other Republicans just argued successfully, I may add, before the Missouri Supreme Court that the lack of explicit authorization for mid-decade redistricting did not equate to a prohibition on mid-decade redistricting. It's what I have famously called the Airbud rule. So now it seems that people, not politicians, get to use the Airbud rule against you, and they're going to probably point to that precedent as saying the Supreme Court just ruled that a lack of specificity in the Constitution is not a prohibition. Are you ready to basically say the Airbud rule doesn't apply here?
Right, most certainly. I think the U.S. Constitution makes it very clear that the General Assembly is the one that draws districts for the representatives as well as U.S. senators. And so, again, I think that our founders never intended and never even thought this would become a thing as far as doing a referendum on a congressional redistricting map.
Why did you make this decision now instead of months ago? For context, when Secretary of State Ashcroft got the signatures for right to work back in 2017, he made a decision right away. So when you say that, like, why is it to when you say basically that why do you have until the day of the primary election for this, people are going to be like, you could have made this decision months ago, like your predecessor did on a very similar proposal.
I could have, but I have met all state law requirements and deadlines. I've met all constitutional deadlines. As a certified public accountant, I say that I want to make sure all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. We have a system of checks and balances for a reason. And so I wanted to make sure that everything was in order. I wanted to make sure that our local election authorities were able to utilize their time up until July 27th of 2026 in order to verify the signatures, and that I was able to utilize my time to make sure everything was correct by today's deadline at 5 p.m.
A number of county clerks on both sides of the aisle have told me they were not happy that you were waiting to make this decision for the following reason. If you're wrong and the Missouri Supreme Court puts the referendum on the ballot based off the Maggard decision, that means the map was never in effect as of last December, and it broaches the possibility that there could be redo primaries for these congressional elections. Are you confident that if you're wrong here and the Missouri Supreme Court overrules you, that we are not going to have redo primaries?
Yes, I mean, I guess the courts can do whatever they want if there's a court decision that probably will ultimately be decided by the Missouri Supreme Court. However, I'm confident in the research I've done. I'm confident in my internal general counsel, and I'm confident in the Attorney General's opinion that says that, hey, the Missouri First map is the law of the land.
Are you also confident that if you're wrong and they put the referendum on the ballot, that the 2025 map would still be in effect for the general? Are you also confident that if you're wrong and they put the referendum on the ballot, that the 2025 map would still be in effect for the
I,
general?
I, I know one of the things that the courts would look at is how far down the road that we are. I mean, the candidates have all ran in their own districts, the new Missouri First map districts. They've met folks in those districts, and all the local election authorities as well as the county clerks have instituted the new map. So I would say that we are very far down the road as far as the new Missouri First map, and I would hope that the courts would not overturn that and do something different.
There are going to be people who say you made this decision because you support a map that draws out a manual cleaver and you don't want Respect Missouri voters to pass because if it passes, it locks in all sorts of initiative petitions that Republicans don't like. So I'm giving you a chance to preemptively respond to that criticism.
As a Missouri State representative, as a Missouri State senator, I advocated for the Missouri First map and a 7-1 map. So this is not something new. It's not something that I just decided as Secretary of State, hey, I think I support a 7-1 map. This is something that I voted for and advocated for in 2022 was a 7-1 map. So this has nothing to do, obviously, with my position as Secretary of State. My position as Secretary of State is not to make laws, but to administer the law. And so I know that there are some folks out there that are frustrated and don't want me to follow the Missouri state law and the Missouri Constitution. And I've told them, like, hey, you need to talk to your state rep and your state senator. Those are the people that actually can make laws and file bills. I will simply administer Missouri state law and the Constitution as it's written.